Hello and welcome to gojenn Podcast 24. This episode is only spinning. Today is Sunday, July 12th, and I have been spinning like a mad woman for Tour de Fleece. And this week I actually have some finished objects. So that's why I figured I would do this on a slideshow, because I've got a lot of process pictures and only the finished objects to show you. So I will see you at the end of this slideshow. I started off with this braid from Phoenix Fiber Company. I think last week when I saw you, I had started spinning this. It was a joy to spin. It was 100% BFL Blueface Leicester, and it had a much longer staple length than the Coopworth that I was used to spinning. So the staple length is the length of each individual hair that is being spun into the yarn. So that means that you don't have to draft as often. You don't have to pinch out fresh fiber because the fiber itself is longer. I did submit every day to the Tour de Fleece group on Ravelry. This day was the 5th, and I spun for 2 hours. And I have been really happy with my spinning this week. This is what it looked like after the first day of spinning, and I really had to just make myself stop. So here you see, that's the braid. That's the first, or that's what it looked like when it was finished spinning in the center there. And then I Navajo plied it, which made it into a 3-ply yarn. And that's what it looked like finished up. I was very, very pleased with it. You saw there were a lot of different colors in that braid, and I think they came out in the yarn. One of the reasons I chose to end ply this, Navajo ply it or chain ply, it's all the same thing, is that it will maintain your color repeats of your original fiber. As much as is possible when you ply something, because I was actually plying the yarn with the very next yarn that came along, so that made for more consistent coloring, and I wanted to do that with that braid that was so very, very colorful and beautiful. And then so it went from 240 yards of singles into 80 yards of an end-plied yarn, because that's took the 240 yards singles and effectively made 3 strands of yarn for each one. So that made it 80 yards end-plied. I wanted to show you my very, very fancy Lazy Kate. I know there was a thread I was reading the other day where people were kind of discussing the merits of the different really nice fancy Lazy Kate. I do very well with my Lazy Kate that I made out of an Amazon box. I've got the spindle in there on a knitting needle, a straight knitting needle, and I use binder clips to help me tension the yarn. So that's what I use when I am making a center pull ball from the bobbin, so that I can ply it, or I ply directly from this. It helps if you put it kind of behind you and to the left. Is the way it feels comfortable for me. And then I can just pull up that strand and make the loop that you need for the Navajo ply. And so that really didn't cost me anything at all, which means I have more money for fiber, right? Yeah. Because look at all I saved by not buying a fancy lazy cape. See? And you remember my fun dyeing day? This is the gold Coopworth that I dyed with the lemonade and orange Kool-Aid. And so it was really fun to see what this was going to spin like since it had been dyed. This is after the first day, and you see that it's really just a lovely, foxy, orange, brown, yellow, gold color. I was really happy to spin it. It did very, very well. This is at the end of the spinning. So this is the entire bit of fiber that I had in that color that I then spun. So this is it in a single. Here it is after I two-plied it. And I two-plied it from a, well, this yarn was very difficult. It was, because I made a terrible tangled mess out of my ball of yarn that I was going to try to ply from a center pull ball. But something happened and it took me hours and hours to untangle that mess. But here it is after it's finally two-plied. And you see the strand that's at the top, which is the very end of it. You see how relaxed that is? It's just limp. There's no, kinkiness to it or anything like that. So it made me really happy with the way that it turned out. I think I had about 3 ounces of that Coopworth that I dyed this orangey golden color, and since I two-plied it, I turned the 180 yards of singles into 90 yards of finished yarn. So this needs to have a bath so that it can relax a little bit, and then it is totally finished. I'm really proud with it and happy with how it turned out. That picture is darker than the actual color of this skein. It is very much orangey gold. I'm thrilled with it. Alright, back on dyeing day, I also did the blue Kool-Aid on the Coopworth. I had a little bit more of this fiber. I think this was about 3.9 ounces that I dyed with the blue Kool-Aid. And so I started spinning this, and that was the first night spinning. Really happy with it. It's I enjoy spinning the Coopworth. It's not the softest fiber by far, at least not yet. It hasn't been soaked and rinsed and all of that for the actual final rinsing of it, but it makes me really happy. I mean, that looks like blue cotton candy, and who wouldn't love that? Okay, so this is what it looked like when I wound this, the finished spun yarn. Okay, I wound it into a center pull ball so that I could two-ply this as well, because it's not as important to maintain any kind of color repeat with this kind of yarn or the gold, right? Because it's all, the same basic color. It's not like that Phoenix Fiberworks that I started with, the first one, where it had very distinct changes in distinct colors. So for this Coopworth and the gold Coopworth, I decided just to two-ply them. And it's easiest to do that from a center pull ball. So I only had to make one ball, and then I spun a two-ply, one from the outside of the ball and one from the inside. This still tangled, but not as badly. I just think that's beautiful. To me, that's I know I get really philosophical or something about this. This is like a work of art to me because I know what went into making this. This is this picture is more washed out than the actual finished skein is. It's much more of a blue, but this was the best I could do. So this was a 3.9 ounce bit of that Coopworth that I hand dyed with the blue Kool-Aid, and I ended up with 192 yards of singles that once it was plied, 2-ply, I got 96 yards of finished yarn. And no, I have no clue what I'm going to do with any of this. Since it's not a lot of yarn that I'm finishing up with, I don't know that I will, I mean, there's not that much yarn to make much besides hats or, I don't know, a scarf. I've thought about knitting the blue and gold together into something, but I haven't decided. That is something for another day. And I think before I had said I was probably not even going to ply my yarn until after the Tour de Fleece so that I wouldn't spend my spinning time plying. But I'm also submitting these yarns to the Harry Potter House Cup, and for that to be able to be submitted, it has to be a finished yarn. So I've had to ply it anyway, which is probably better. I don't know if I would feel like going back and plying later, but once it's there, it's in the single, it's ready, just go ahead. And usually plying doesn't take that long unless you totally tangle it like I did with that gold. And then it takes hours and hours and hours. Seriously. I started spinning that night at like 6:15. It was Friday night to finish the gold yarn. No kidding. By the time I finally went to bed and it was plied and finished, it was almost 3 a.m. So I could stay up and do it since I didn't have to go to work the next day, but still. And I watched a movie, I watched podcasts, I watched YouTube videos while I was untangling that mess. I don't think I want to do that again. So here's what's left for me to spin. I have these rolags from Naturally Knitty on Etsy. She does beautiful work. I think I have spun the yellow ones, and I've started an orange, I think, here. So far I've taken this to work for my Spin at Work project. Because my lace top that would normally be my take to work project, it did not even see the outside of its bag this week. So that is not a good thing. So I'm going to start taking that to work for my work project. And that should be much, much better. I also have left to spin these, and this is just really the assignment that I've given myself, that I want to spin these fiber samples. There's 8 of them, and I think it totals 2 ounces altogether, so it's very, very little, but each bump is a different kind of fiber. So I'm interested to see how that's going to spin up. I'll be spinning things I haven't spun before. So I'm looking forward to that. I want to do it. And then the next thing that's going to go on the wheel is this Three Waters Farm braid that I have to spin. It's a bigger braid. I want to say it's maybe over 4 ounces. I'm not sure. This is either BFL or Targhee fiber. I'm not sure. But it is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So that's the next thing that I'm going to spin. I promise. And my husband's birthday cut into my spending time this week. His birthday was Thursday, and so we had to have his birthday grand celebration, and he had friends come, and we had dinner out, and it was a lot of fun. All right, so now I'm going to cut in with the live part of the podcast.